Bilal has filed a $3 million lawsuit against Jada, claiming that she basically threatened, it comes across like a death threat.
To kill him.
Like a death threat, because
it hit Hollywood like an earthquake. Just as the fallout from Diddy's case seemed to quiet down, word broke that the FBI had shifted its focus toward another household name, Will Smith. And not just him. His wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, was reportedly part of the same expanding web of federal scrutiny. For years, they were the couple that sold redemption, family, faith, resilience after chaos. Now, insiders were whispering that behind the polished smiles was something far more sinister, and that the same machinery that took down Sean Combs might have started moving in their direction. We're talking about the FBI allegedly taking the Smiths very seriously, not for gossip, but for patterns. Patterns that looked eerily familiar to the kind of predatory gatekeeping that's been documented in case after case since Diddy's empire started collapsing. The first red flag came in late December 2025, when Los Angeles court filings surfaced naming Will Smith in a misconduct and retaliation lawsuit filed by professional violinist Brian King Joseph. It wasn't vague. It was detailed, timed, and full of specifics that read less like fantasy and more like a timeline of events you could trace with receipts and call logs.
Shocking allegations against Will Smith, a violinist who was a finalist on America's Got Talent and performed in Smith's band, is accusing the star of predatory behavior.
According to those filings, Joseph, known from his run on America's Got Talent, had been hired to perform with Smith in December 2024. That booking supposedly turned into a tour offer for 2025, a chance to join Smith's Based on a True Story concert run, an opportunity any working musician would have dreamed of. But what happened next was not the dream he expected. The lawsuit alleges that Smith began what Joseph called deliberate grooming, building trust through mentorship and private time that blurred professional lines. The documents claim that during the Las Vegas leg of the tour in March 2025, Joseph returned to his hotel room after rehearsals and found it had been entered without permission. A note, addressed to him by name, was left behind. It read, "Brian, I'll be back no later 5:30, just us," followed by a drawn heart and signed with the name Stone F. On top of that, the violinist said he found personal items that didn't belong to him. Wipes, a beer bottle, a red backpack, hospital discharge papers, and a bottle of HIV medication under another person's name.
Yeah, Kate, so according to the complaint, this all happened in March of last year while the violinist was on tour with Will Smith for Smith's global tour for his latest album Based on a True Story. And according to the complaint, there was this intrusion at his Las Vegas hotel room. He came back to his hotel, he says, and found that there was no forced entry, but that someone had entered the room and left a number of items there.
Joseph claimed he immediately contacted hotel security, took photos, and called local authorities to document the intrusion. What came after, he says, was retaliation. Instead of protection or investigation, he was allegedly fired from the tour and accused of lying. In his statement, he wrote that a representative for Smith's management team told him, "Everyone is saying nothing happened and you made the whole thing up." The violinist insists he was traumatized, developed severe anxiety, and has been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress since. When the story broke, Smith's attorney Alan B. Grodsky issued a public denial through People magazine. "Mr. Joseph's allegations concerning my client are false, baseless, and reckless. They're categorically denied, and we will use all legal means available to ensure the truth is brought to light." Still, the specificity of the complaint, the dates, the note, the items, the firing, kept people talking. A week before filing, Joseph had even posted a cryptic Instagram video saying he understood others who are afraid to speak out, and adding, "If that's you, I see you." It was his way of hinting that he wasn't alone.
TMZ Live. So Jada Pinkett Smith is in the middle of a thing, namely
a big legal thing.
A big legal thing because, according to someone, Jada threatened to put a bullet in them.
Someone who is a close friend of Will's. Bilal Salam says that he and Will have been very close friends.
What made this lawsuit different was timing. It didn't emerge in a vacuum. Diddy was already behind bars, facing decades in federal custody after a parade of witnesses, including former employees and performers, described eerily similar patterns of manipulation disguised as mentorship. Insiders began to wonder aloud if what was being exposed in one empire was now spilling into another. The entertainment industry, they said, runs on hierarchies of access, and if Will Smith, Hollywood's most bankable, likable figure, was suddenly under federal attention, then maybe the story of abuse and protection in show business was much bigger than one man's tour. But this wasn't only about Will. Around at the same time, Jada Pinkett Smith's name resurfaced in a separate legal filing. A former associate named Bilal Salam accused her of threatening him at a private event in Calabasas back in 2021, allegedly demanding he sign a non-disclosure agreement to stay quiet about something he'd witnessed. Sources close to that case told reporters the incident was dismissed as personal drama, but the optics were terrible. It painted Jada not as a victim or bystander, but as someone capable of controlling narratives with intimidation. The phrase gray cardinal started trending, an old world term for the power behind the throne. By now, even their marriage had become part of the intrigue. In her 2023 memoir, Worthy, Jada admitted she and Will had been separated since 2016. The public thought that confession explained the chaos, the entanglement with singer August Alsina, the awkward Red Table Talk episodes, the slap at the Oscars. But insiders say federal investigators see those years differently. A convenient period where financial and professional lines blurred, where their joint ventures through Treyball Studios might have facilitated introductions between the couple and rising talent. That possibility, if proven, changes everything. It means the FBI isn't just looking at personal scandals. They're mapping networks. Who was promised what? Who was silenced? Who got blacklisted after speaking up? One industry insider told Fox Digital that the Bureau's questions feel like deja vu. Another said agents are looking at crossovers between Smith's production company and entities already mentioned in Diddy's trafficking investigation. No one on record will confirm that, but the fear is obvious. The entertainment elite, once untouchable, are suddenly being treated like subjects of organized crime.
When you get to the parties, they come out and collect everybody's phone. So now it's just your word against a billionaire. You're gonna lose.
What amplifies the tension is Jada's rumored influence over Will. Former collaborators describe her as the strategist, the one who makes the calls, approves appearances, signs off on who gets close. In public, she's the voice of healing. Behind closed doors, they say she runs the machine. If those accounts are true, then Will's image as the genial superstar becomes something else entirely, a carefully curated mask protecting a system of exploitation that might mirror the worst of what we saw in Diddy's downfall. We can trace the connective tissue easily now. Diddy's parties, once dismissed as eccentric indulgence, turned out to be pipelines for exploitation. The lawsuits naming him referenced celebrities who watched, participated, or stayed silent. And when the FBI raids began, agents reportedly seized electronics with footage implicating several major names. Among the whispers, two names kept resurfacing, Will and Jada. Nothing public has confirmed that link, but it's enough to make Hollywood nervous. Meanwhile, the Smith camp remains quiet. No statement from Jada, no new posts on social media since December, and Will hasn't been seen publicly since the lawsuit was filed. Friends close to the family say he's devastated, but others point out that silence is strategic. It's what every crisis manager advises when the feds are involved. What's unclear is how deep this goes. Were they simply careless celebrities caught in the gravitational pull of Diddy's collapsing empire, or were they players in the same dark economy he built? What we do know is that the overlap is too close for coincidence. Diddy's trial documents include references to performers and assistants connected through music and film circles that overlap with the Smiths' projects. Some names appear in both ecosystems, from party guest lists to shared producers. The FBI's pattern of subpoenas, according to insiders, follows those intersections. Production companies, event coordinators, private security contractors who worked for both households.
Look at how many people he affected negatively. That was his trade-off to gain what he had. His former bodyguard, Gene Deal, said he seen him doing a ritual where they a dove. What is that? And I feel like it's being overlooked because they see him doing the dance moves with the baggy clothes. You know, some of the ladies in his videos were ladies.
And that's where the unease sits. Because if what started as Diddy's scandal has now stretched to America's most famous couple, then the story of Hollywood corruption isn't isolated at all. It's structural. It's about who holds the keys, who gets to enter, and what price they're forced to pay once they do. We're watching the same playbook unfold again. A rising performer pulled in by power, a private encounter that turns threatening, and an empire scrambling to deny what's already documented. Every day, new fragments surface. Leaked court filings, former associates suddenly going quiet, lawyers refusing comment. The press can't confirm half of it, but the pattern feels undeniable. Even entertainment lawyers now admit that the Smith situation could be the next Diddy, depending on what the FBI uncovers. And behind every denial, there's the shadow of Jada, described by those who know her as brilliant, manipulative, and entirely unbothered by bad press. If Will is the face of their empire, Jada is the architect. And for the first time, it looks like the system she helped build might be cracking. Because the rumors aren't stopping with them. Names are starting to connect. Will, Jada, Diddy, and others who once moved in the same circles of influence, parties, and private meetings that were never meant to be public. The same agents who tracked Diddy's freak-off tapes are reportedly tracing communications tied to that 2025 tour. And if those connections hold up, what comes next won't just be another scandal. It could be the start of a reckoning that forces Hollywood's most protected figures into the same spotlight they once controlled.
And just so happened, one time we stumbled upon something. You know, it's a big white pentagram on the ground, candles, and it's like, okay. And then we keep looking around, we find somebody in a dog cage. A little lady in a dog cage, handcuffed behind her back.
And the deeper we look, the less any of this feels like coincidence. What's unfolding around the Smiths doesn't sit in isolation. It mirrors the same decay we've seen surrounding Diddy's empire. The timing, the methods, even the whispered vocabulary of power and secrecy all feel like reflections of one another. The difference is that this time, the alleged manipulation sits at the intersection of Hollywood glamour and spiritual branding, the place where public image meets private indulgence. It's becoming impossible to ignore the idea that what began as individual scandals might actually be the exposed edge of a coordinated network. The pattern keeps repeating itself. Diddy built a world where influence was currency and compliance was survival. Those who entered his orbit chasing opportunity often left damaged, disillusioned, or silent. The Smiths, in their own carefully curated way, offered something similar: access to enlightenment, mentorship, career doors that only they could open. Behind the meditation retreats and motivational speeches, insiders claim, were private invitations and ambiguous boundaries that looked far less innocent in hindsight. One former associate reportedly said, "It's all energy and control. Once you're in, you can't tell where charisma ends and coercion begins."
You got to really look at what's going on. I've been around him a couple of times. Don't like the guy. And I know a lot of other people who he's done weird things to. And there are several men who have reached out to me telling me that they got their cakes took, basically. They got diddled.
We can see how those echoes now ring louder after the FBI raids that tore through Diddy's properties. Agents found storage drives, cameras, and evidence of gatherings that blurred the line between parties and rituals. Several lawsuits describe those gatherings in disturbing detail. People masked, filmed, and paraded in front of A-list spectators. And buried in a few of those complaints, under pseudonyms and redacted initials, there are quiet nods toward familiar names. Industry chatter insists that at least one of those unnamed participants had overlapping business dealings with Treyball Studios. No one has confirmed it, but the coincidence has kept lawyers up at night. The phrase industry rituals has now entered the mainstream conversation, a catch-all for what used to be whispered as the cost of entry. It's the same pattern. The gatekeepers at the top promise transformation, exposure, transcendence, and those promises come with fine print that nobody reads until it's too late. When we trace who attended certain private gatherings between 2018 and 2023, who benefited from sudden boosts in visibility, and who disappeared after refusing to play along, the same clusters of names appear again and again. It isn't proof, but it's smoke. And in this business, smoke usually means something's burning just out of sight.
Will was bent over on the couch and Dwayne was standing up. Like, there was murder in there.
For years, Will and Jada's circle was considered elite but safe. Their Red Table Talk appearances painted them as open-minded, progressive icons. But even that now reads differently, like a public rebranding ahead of something they already knew might surface. Jada's insistence on emotional transparency, Will's constant reinvention. It all starts to look like a controlled narrative, the kind you construct when silence could be more dangerous than confession. We remember that infamous line from Will himself. When you've been with someone for more than half of your life, emotional blindness sets in. Some hear that as a reflection on marriage. Others now hear it as an accidental metaphor for complicity. The whispers about Dwayne Martin complicate everything further. That relationship, first dismissed as homophobic gossip, has returned to the headlines with fresh weight. Brother Bilal's explosive claims that he witnessed a private encounter between the two actors might sound outrageous, but they land differently in a post-Diddy world. We've seen too much to completely dismiss anything. What stands out is the financial entanglement. Will's $1.4 million loan that saved Dwayne's mansion, a transaction buried under corporate paperwork just months before Jada's first separation announcement. On paper, it's generosity. To investigators, it could look like hush money or collateral, a debt that guaranteed silence. Then there's the timing. In the months before the Violinist's lawsuit, several of Smith's tour staff were quietly let go or reassigned. A few have since given off the record statements describing what they called the strangest tour energy they'd ever experienced. Restricted areas backstage, unlisted guests escorted through side entrances, and production assistants ordered to hand over their phones before meetings. One tech crew member even told a reporter he was warned never to look inside a certain dressing room, no matter what sounds you hear. None of these claims have been verified, but together they paint a portrait of control that feels eerily familiar. Meanwhile, Jada's former associate, Bilal Salam, resurfaced after years of silence. His story of being threatened at a private screening in Calabasas and forced to sign an NDA barely made headlines at the time. Now it looks like another piece of the puzzle, the same tactics of intimidation, same fixation on silence. Those who once brushed it off are now rereading the court documents, noticing details that didn't seem important before. The event took place in September 2021. The same month, federal investigators reportedly began expanding their inquiry into the entertainment sector following multiple Diddy-related testimonies.
I'm sorry, I'm just I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck during those years. You're still stuck 21 years later.
The Hollywood power structure is starting to look like a web with too many shared threads. The same security firms, the same private event planners, the same non-disclosure agreements drafted by the same Beverly Hills law offices. It's no longer about one celebrity's behavior. It's about the ecosystem that allowed it to thrive. We're hearing that some of those lawyers are already cooperating quietly, supplying contracts and communications that trace connections between the Smiths, Combs, and several lesser-known producers who have since gone underground. No one's naming names yet, but the fear among insiders is real, especially among those who once worked security or logistics at celebrity parties that now feel radioactive. What's most unsettling is how quickly the tide can turn. Just a few years ago, Diddy was a global icon, celebrated for his philanthropy and success. Within months, the narrative collapsed, and the evidence piled up faster than anyone could spin it. We can sense that same tension building around the Smiths. The press has started digging deeper, from Will's decade-old production deals to Jada's red table partnerships with streaming platforms that allegedly funneled money through shell entities. Add in the FBI's known interest in trafficking-related networks disguised as talent incubators, and it's hard not to feel the walls closing in. Some entertainment analysts claim the Smiths are now the centerpiece of a larger probe into how influence operates behind closed doors in Hollywood. Others think it's more personal, that the government, already burned by criticism of celebrity favoritism, is making an example of them. Whatever the truth, we can see the pattern. A system built on favors and secrets, now unraveling thread by thread. The people once protected by power are suddenly realizing that power itself is evidence. Even the public tone is shifting. Fans who once defended Will online have gone quiet, unsure how to process the headlines. Industry colleagues are deleting old photos. And yet, Jada remains almost serene, appearing at spiritual retreats, speaking about shadow work and energy cleansing. To some, it's self-care. To others, it feels like a performance, the calm before another revelation. And still, questions linger. Why have so many assistants and associates around the Smiths vanished from public view? Why do court filings and lawsuits against them mention hotel rooms, recordings, and unexplained intrusions that echo the very tactics now proven in Diddy's operations? Are these coincidences or signs of a shared system built to exploit and then erase? There's a quiet dread settling over the industry, a realization that if investigators can link even one communication chain between Diddy's operations and the Smiths companies, it could redefine how celebrity influence is policed forever. Because if Will and Jada fall, it won't just be two careers ending. It will be the symbolic collapse of an era that told us fame equals purity. And maybe that's the real fear here. Not that they're guilty, but that they're ordinary. That behind the speeches, the memoirs, and the red carpets, they were playing the same game everyone else was, just better. That's the part no one wants to say out loud. So what happens next? The rumors keep multiplying, the court filings keep expanding, and the silence from the Smiths camp grows heavier by the day. The story is no longer just about who did what. It's about how deep the rot goes and how many names will be dragged down when the truth finally surfaces. Because this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The same cameras that once worshipped them are now waiting outside their gates. The same fans who cheered are scrolling through documents, piecing together timelines. We're all watching the same script play out again. Power, control, exposure. But this time, the main characters are the ones who taught us how to smile through scandal. So we have to ask, is this the beginning of Hollywood's final unmasking, or just another storm the powerful will survive? And when the truth finally breaks, will it be the end of the Smith legacy? Or the moment we realize it was never what we thought it was? Let us know what you believe, because one thing's certain, this story isn't finished. And when the next revelation hits, it won't just change their image, it'll change everything. Until then, keep your eyes open and your expectations low. We'll see you in the next one.